And I'm live again. It's another live on Instagram. Not going to be a big one tonight, but a few things to discuss and a few things to touch on tonight, which is going to be a lot of fun. Thank you everyone who's just joining in. Just Streaming 45 Finn. Thank you so much for joining in. It says plus one other. I can't see who that other is. Instagram does that thing where if a lot of people join at once, it condenses into like 45 Finn, etc. joined. So whoever you are, thank you for joining. Excuse me. She said, fine, Mount Boy, SM Yan, good to see you all. I'm going to do a bit of an unusual Boilermaker tonight on camera and talk a little bit about thank you, Petros, thank you for joining. Yes, I'm going to do a bit of an interesting pairing tonight, and I'll explain what that is in a moment, and about using the right glassware. But I said we'll talk about New Make as well tonight, because there's an interesting thing about New Make, which was brought up in last night's stream, that I wanted to touch on tonight, because I thought it's really quite fascinating, the fill strength. I got asked, let me rewind a second. Monday night, it was a bit of a nerd out session. We're nerding out about things to do with, Monday night was a rant. Sorry, what am I talking about? But at the end of the session, it sort of got a bit nerdy. And I said, well, why don't we save the nerdy stuff for Nerdy Tuesdays instead? And we started talking about New Make and how that affects, how the filling strength affects the final flavor of the product. So that's something really quite interesting there, and something that we should probably touch on tonight. Ali's Whiskies, Rob Akers, Casadevounos, Teagues, Dave Miller, thank everyone for joining in. Fraser, of course, thank you so much for joining as well. So a few things to go over. I mean, I'm going to start with, before this gets to room temperature, I'm going to big shout out to Calte99 for hooking me up with a can of this. It's Exit Brewing in Dandenong South, India Pale Ale. I do like a good strong IPA. And I think that this is one of those examples of an IPA done really well from what I've heard, and I think that's quite exciting. Oh, no, it's all right. Didn't spray everywhere. All good. And I'm going to use a Belgian beer glass for that one, and let that. Oh wow, that smell is very robust. That's a big IPA. But I'm going to pour that. I'm going to pour all of that one. So a huge thanks and shout out to Calte99 for hooking me up with that beer. That's lovely. Thank you very much. Wow, I wasn't expecting to start with an IPA, but I'm all the better for it. Dr. Badger joined, good to see. Lee Wallace, Renetz joined. Thank you everyone for joining in. Tonight we're going to discuss New Make, filling strengths, why they're important, what they are, and why this plays a part of how the spirit develops and how it creates the flavors in the final product. We're not going to go too far into this, but I really love kind of discussing this stuff with you. So if you want to throw any questions my way, always appreciated. Robbie, lovely to see you as always. I even printed out a little graph to do with phenols and fills, which is really starting to nerd out. But I'm not going to go too far into it, but I'm going to rewind to what Andrew said at our live tasting on the Saturday night, where he said the art of distillation is the art of making flavored alcohol. That's a really important distinction to say it like that. Because in that capacity, making flavored alcohol means making a good distillate. So it's this, as I said last night, one of Bill Lark's old quotes, shit in, shit out. Put bad spirit into any type of cask, it doesn't matter how good that cask is, it's going to be a bad spirit coming out the other end. So just on that point, I want to talk about how you have this approach of sort of making a great spirit to begin with, starting with a great barley strain or multiple barley strains. The water source, not overly important as the water goes through many stages of filtration, ionization, and things like that. So it changes quite dramatically. But then there's the third one, which is of course the yeast strain that's used. And I'll get to that question, Fraser. So it's the yeast strains and the things that are used to create that final product of the spirit, which goes through distillate. So the question was asked last night about distillation, which was, why do most distilleries fill at 63.5%? And why is that the point that they distill at? Why is it the amount that they fill the cask at? I'll get to that point in a moment. Fraser asks, how is the quality of the cask determined? Porosity, etc. It's often determined by eye, Fraser. It's often determined by checking checking the porousness of the porosity, of the cask. Is one way of doing it. Another way is to check the depth level of the char and seeing how active that wood is, and also just off aroma alone from the charring or the toasting of that cask. There's different ways that arborists and coopers test the quality of the wood. I am not an arborist. I am not a cooper. I don't know the exact science of that detail, but I do know that it's often determined by the color grading of what was previously in that barrel and how deep that's affected on it and the overall aroma. And it's often a case of smelling things. Traveling whiskey reviews. Robbie, you work with Round Oak barrels. If you want to throw a comment in there about how the quality of barrels is tested beyond sort of just human nosing and an evaluation of the smell of those casks, you can smell a sulfurous cask and you can smell an astringent cask very, very quickly. You can smell that they're very quickly identified. But if there's any other details in there you want to add in, Robbie, we're all ears over here. Davies Food One joined. Thank you so much. So where did that proof of 63 point... yeah, thanks, Dr. Akers. Where did the standard proof of 63.5% come from? Where did that proof come from? Why did distillers fill at that proof? Now, there's a historical reason behind that, which is because it was called 11 over. So it was 100 proof, 100 British proof, sorry, not 100 American proof. So 100 American proof would be 50% ABV. But this was 100 proof, British proof, but it was called 111. And that was it was for taxation purposes. Just like when you see whiskey today bottled at 43%, it's bottled at that proof, not for flavour reasons, but for tax reasons. I'm going to have some people argue with me on that, especially those who like their 43%. 43% is improvement on 40. But we all wish sometimes, we've all tasted a couple of 43% whiskies before and gone, yeah, I wish that was a bit higher proof. Wish that was 50 or 55, give a bit more flavour. But the more flavour in this, the better the spirit, and the higher the proof of the spirit, the more the flavours, the flavoured ethanol is in that finished product. That's why I appreciate and love cask strength whiskey. So let's go back in time a second. I've got some notes here because I had to write all this stuff up today just to make sure I get some of it right at least. Johnny says, smelling for ethyl acetate, sourness, mustiness, and sulphur. Ducket Bucket says, tell Johnny to stay quiet. You guys, I swear sometimes this the live stream is half Tasmanians. And I'm perfectly fine with it. But I love that you guys are just all here to stir me up. Thank you so much. Okay, so 111 proof came from the British rule of 111 or 11 over, as I used to call it. But so even before, so 1915, let's rewind about 104 years. 1915 was the year that Scotland started mandating that spirit has to be matured in wood to be called whiskey. So we're talking 104 years. It's only 104 years. It's not that long, really, in the grand historical context of whiskey production worldwide. It's a long time. 100 years is, of course, a long time, but it's really not that long in many ways. But even before then, even before 1915, it was actually the first half of the 19th century where the spirit that was designed to impart that flavour was only to be distilled at two different strengths, and that was 23 over, or 70.2% alcohol, or 11 over, so 111 proof, or 63.5%. That's where those numbers come from. That's where 63.5% as a filling strength actually originates from. Is it the best strength to fill spirit into a barrel? Debatable. And every distillery has their different methods and different techniques and different answers for why. I'm going to show you that graph now, that really nerdy graph that I've got ready for tonight. Bang. Now, I don't know how much of that you can see from here, but what I'll explain it just in a little more detail. 0, 20, 40, 60, 80, and 100 ABV on the bottom here. And then the total extract of phenols. So the total phenols, milligram per litre. The actual peak phenol for spirit, for extract of the spirit, going into a barrel, peaks. I mean, properly peaks. That line you can see there, it peaks about there. And the peak strength there, a peak on the phenols with the spirit, is right on pretty much 58.5%. So one could argue that filling barrels at 63.5% is a bit overkill. It's almost a little bit too hot for what that spirit needs to be. Hiya, Jack. Thanks for joining in. A.E. Moores, Alex, thanks for joining. Hillwood Whiskey, thanks for joining. We're just talking about New Make Spirit because I got quizzed on it last night, and I did a bit more research today, and it's exactly what I thought it was. It's the 111, it's the 11 over and 23 over rule. 23 over is still used as well in grain whiskey, but we'll talk about that another night. Like I said, not a big one tonight. We're going to talk about a couple of things like that. Now, the small part is I got quizzed a couple of times today on one of the outturn releases. So, October outturn, which is here, which is this Friday. This Friday! It's already Tuesday. It's just coming along so quickly. We tasted last night we tasted Wildcat Did Purr, a lovely 7-year-old waxy, sweet, fruity and mellow from Demolished distillery. Pretend I didn't tell you what the distillery is, but that's what it is. And then we also tasted the 31-year-old 35.228, the cigar juice the night before. You can catch them on the story or on our YouTube. If you missed it, that's okay. Tonight, a proper review of deep, dark and brooding R13.1, a 20-year-old single cask Trinidadian rum from a Demolished distillery. You need the right glass though, hold on. I do really love our spirit glass. It was actually designed in collaboration with the Edinburgh Whisky Academy to create a glass that caters for non-whiskey spirits, rums, cognacs, armagnacs. It's a bit smaller than the Bormioli example. It's got a bit more of a focused nose. It's a lovely little glass. Hey, and here's my little sales pitch. I don't really do this in these videos, but it comes in a nice little gift box as well. There you go. That's the sound. I'm going to pour just a wee little bit of that because it's quite an expensive little treat, this one. And I will end up using the rest of this bottle for a couple of things coming up to be announced. Such as, if you want to taste a bit more of that rum, if you want to taste this rum, even after outturn, it's going to be at the Archieros Pop-Up Bar. 3 nights only, 17th, 18th and 19th this month. This month, I can say it now because we're in October. But this is, those 3 nights, Thursday, Friday night, Saturday night, I'm going to have that until it runs out. And I'll have it at a very attractive price per dram. Because it's not a cheap bottle, I'll be honest. It's $6.49 a bottle. But once you nose it and taste it, you'll understand what it is. Ooh, here we go. That's really, really that's opened up even since in a good way. It was really quite tight when I opened the bottle for the first night. Oh, this distillery is famous for producing what they call dark naval rum. And they closed the doors once and for all in 2001, I think. And it was only after 2001. It was in 2005 or 6, or even just before 2004, when Luca from Velliere was traveling through the region in Trinidad and found warehouses full of this great rum. And it was like, and he noticed that it was just spectacular rum. Now, this is the first time, there's been other Coronis, I can say it, other Coronis before, but this is the first one we've ever bottled, because we've been quite discerning on picking out the right casks for these, as we always are. We're not always first through the door, but when we do release something from a distillery that we might be a little bit, may have taken a bit of time to get to us, it's well worth it. Well worth it. It's darker than the color would presume on camera. It's quite a bit of light in this room right now. Amazing nose. Been asked a couple of questions. Is there an AR blending class this year? SM Yan, yes there is. Tickets are up now actually. We haven't formally announced it, but it's on it's not on our website. Archie Rose run this one. And we co-host it with them obviously. But it's a blend your own whiskey masterclass for everyone to attend, and it's up online right now on the Archie Rose website. There's only 20 spaces for that, so please come along if you want to get in on that one. Get in, and that guarantees you a seat at the bar that night as well because you're already in the room. And Saturday nights do book out, as I said. So that's on the Saturday the 19th, the blending class. That's only like 18 days away, so I'd love to see you there. That's going to be hosted by both Dave Withers, the master distiller at Archie Rose, and myself. Oh, just amazing. I'm going to have a sip of my beer, though. I actually didn't think that an IPA and a rum could go together. Travelling Whiskey Reviews skipped. What skipped? Hope it wasn't the stream. Hope the upload's going alright. My internet has been a bit crappy today. Might be that. It's Australian internet. What do you expect? I don't want to go on a rant about Australian internet on a whiskey stream, but you know, fair call. So it's got this salty, it's almost not salty, but like a coastal note to it, like a deep, dark and brooding coastal note. Oh, sorry, yes. He has skipped vital facts. I haven't skipped any vital facts. I was talking about phenols, I was talking about rum, I was talking about beer. What have I missed? Let me know if I've missed something. I might be a bit off track tonight. Get my head checked. That's a lovely rum. I'm going to have just a little sip of this one. 62.3%. Not for the faint-hearted. Treacle. It's a sooty note, like an old chimney. You know, okay, here's one for you. Lindt dark sea salt chocolate. That's remarkable. Your graph is calibrated at 20 degrees, but average room temperature is 13 to 16. No. This is a graph of phenols on the spirit run. So the total phenols milligram per litre on the total of the extract of the ABV. That doesn't factor in room temperature. I don't think it should. It shouldn't factor in room temperature anyway, because that's gonna vary. But the phenol level off the spirit run extracts highest at about 58%. I might be missing something here. Sorry, guys. Yeah, that's going to need a bit more time in the glass. More time than I have tonight for tonight's live stream. I've got a lot more work to do tonight, so I might just call this one a bit short. But I want to thank you all for tuning in as always and being a part of the stream and asking a few questions. Sam, I hope you got a bit out of that, a bit of the historical elements of New Make and how they came about. And I'll agree with you, as that graph does as well, that perhaps more distilleries should be filling at 58% rather than 63.5%. What distillers fill out these days does very wildly. As I said, Starwood fill these days at 55%. Bruichladdich at 72%. There's two wildly different examples and why they fill at those strengths has a huge impact. On the reason why they fill at those strengths varies, but they both have a huge impact on the final flavour that comes out of the mature cask. And I think it's one to be celebrated and one to be researched even more. Because sometimes they just do it for tax reasons. They fill at higher proofs because accountants don't want to mature water. And other times they do it because it's better for flavour reasons. Have you ever noticed, as I said before, like sometimes some casks come in at, even after 8 years, they're sitting at 66%. And it's like, okay. That's a short giveaway in a way of what's happening and why that's happening. So I'll be back on tomorrow night, 8 o'clock as always. 20, 30 minutes of talk and chat and talk about all good things, whiskey and rum in this case. That's in October Outturn. I've told you a few of my tasting notes, but the full ones are in Outturn, of course. It gets its own page. Look at this thing. Look at it. It's beautiful. It's in Outturn just there. If you've got a paper copy, otherwise it's page 20 for those on the PDF. Thank you everyone for tuning in as always. More graphs. Robert, I couldn't agree more. Let's do more graphs. I know they're not really easy to see on Instagram, but I can publish this one online. I can print, put it up on our website or something, and we can learn a bit more about it as we go. Pleasure as always. Thank you all for tuning in. I'll put this one will be up on YouTube in about 10 minutes. Because you asked nicely, Robbie, just for you. New topic suggestion. This might be tomorrow. Whiskey and the movies or whiskey and music. Whiskey and... I like that. Whiskey and music is something that our Cellmaster Andrew explored, but I want to dig into it even more and see what that final frontier or even whiskey and movies. That's always fun. Thanks, Lee. Thanks, Mads. Thanks so much for joining in. I'll see you all tomorrow night, 8 p.m. here. And by the way, I've asked a question before I go. I've asked a question on my Instagram stories. If you wouldn't mind answering that, everyone who's tuned in, just if you don't mind, it's just a question. It's a really simple technical question. Would you like to see this stream on the Facebook group at the same time as here? Because I don't mind either way. It's not that hard to double up. And just let me know, and I can change my setup here, and we can go in from the group as well. And that's going to be good fun either way. If you prefer Facebook, if you prefer Instagram, either way, let me know. And I'll catch you all tomorrow night. Cheers.